Eventually, he telephoned his good friend, the Swedish captain, and explained his predicament. That same evening, the captain was travelling to Gothenburg to catch the ship to North Denmark to join Stan the following day. And so the adventure continued. The Kattegat is a sea lying between the countries of Denmark and Sweden. Home waters of the Vikings, it is a shallow body of water, difficult and even dangerous to navigate due to the many shoals and prevailing weather conditions in winter. The name Kattegat derives from the Dutch words meaning cat's gate and stems from late medieval navigation jargon in which captains of the Hanseatic trading fleets would compare the Danish straits to a passage so tight that even a cat would have difficulty squeezing its way through. It now being mid-November, the weather had deteriorated to such an extent as to make the crossing a significant test of endurance. With the strong headwinds, below freezing temperatures and frequent snowstorms, crossing the Kattegat was going to be a challenge even for the hardiest of seafarers. There was only one practical way to get the boat across the Kattegat: by a more powerful outboard motor. To Stan's amazement and great joy, the captain did just that. A 6-horsepower Swedish twin-cylinder known as the Archimedes. Monday, the 15th, the captain and Stan started their busy day of preparations for the final stage of the journey at 6:30 in the morning. All day trudging about in the snow back and forth while engineers overhauled the old pre-war Seagull Stan had been using. They organised the bringing into town of a number of motors from the surrounding countryside which might have suited their purpose. They bought petrol, plugs, spanners, and attended to numerous now forgotten details. At 2000 hours, they finally got underway from the snug little harbour where Stan had moored the boat. They scraped under the low railway bridge with inches to spare above the mast, past the cheerful lights of Aalborg and into the darkness and biting cold of the empty fjord. At midnight, they motored past Halls out onto the bitter Kattegat. Wind force 3 to 4, east-northeast, dead ahead. A short, choppy, wet sea for their further discomfort. Temperature -10 degrees Celsius. A multitude of brilliant stars and frequent silent explosions of light from the brightest display of meteors Stan had ever seen. Only 60 shuddering, shivering miles to go. The late sunrise, shortly blotted out by thickening banks of snow clouds, found them out of sight of land. Thirsty, their can of water frozen solid. Hungry, they had in their anxiety to get away forgotten to put aboard the food they had ordered and paid for. Wet from the wind-driven spray, astonished, Stan at least, to see the forepart of the cabin top covered with a beautiful quarter-inch coat of the smoothest, most slippery ice he had ever seen. On and on they crashed their way through those infuriating short seas, unable even to tolerate spells in the shelter of the cabin. They had tried this during the night, and on emerging to face the wind and spray, again found they could hardly bear the misery of their comfortless situation. In any case, the bunk cushions were stiff as a board now, having frozen solid. They had with them a small half-pint bottle of Carlsberg Elephant Ale, left over from the evening of their meeting in Alberg. Together they resolved to drink this on sighting the Swedish coast. All the afternoon they competed for the pleasure of shouting, "Time to kill the elephant!" The horizon was still empty when the sun closed down towards the sea astern. The captain now suddenly remembered something he had in the cabin. In a few minutes he came out with a vast brown sausage. He cut off 2 large chunks and handed some to Stan. It proved to be a thick, smoke-darkened skin packed with salt. Mingled with the salt was minced raw bacon. They ate several lumps of this and quickly developed a raging thirst to add to their collection of unhappy things to think about. It became rapidly even colder, and the wind began to rise a bit. The ice started to build a little thicker, and the captain soon transmitted his growing anxiety to Stan by his tales of the Black Death, as he called it, which murdered fishing vessels off Iceland by building ice faster than it could be cleared, until the ships became unstable with the weight and rolled over. He had seen the death of more than one ship from this cause when he had been a fisherman in the area. Stan did not know Peder had lived in Iceland. To pass the time, Peder told him more of his fantastic past. How once he had spent 3 years alone in a tent in the mountains of that forbidding country. This explained, to the comfort of Stan's ego, how it was he could stand the intense cold without much complaint, while Stan himself ached with long-continued shivering and felt almost paralyzed. On and on they pressed through the night, which seemed to go on and on forever. Suddenly, the captain saw something ahead. They thought it was a lightship, and agreed, in view of their thirst, they should call this their first sight of Sweden. They so enjoyed that ale. However, the light vessel proved to be a fishing boat, and they found this most depressing. Stan was very unhappy at the prospect of yet another long, cold night in the open. Not long afterwards, when it had become properly dark, the captain saw and recognized the loom of the lights of Varberg on their starboard bow. Shortly afterwards, the faint loom of Kloster village, dead ahead. Their course had been a good one, even if their estimated progress had been optimistic. With the wind increasing, the fuel getting dangerously low, and their destination still a long way ahead to windward, they still had their worries. Then the motor stopped and could not be restarted. With grim pessimism they shipped the poor little Seagull again. Hopes were low because they had not gained great confidence in the engineer who had overhauled it the day before. They were mistaken, however, and Stan apologized sincerely to that young fellow. The motor showed all the old vigor, and though not so powerful as the other motor, it got them into Kloster Fjord with less than an egg cup full of fuel left in the tank. They found a small harbour partially frozen over and moored up as well as circumstances would allow. Finally, at last, Stan stepped onto Swedish soil for the first time ever at 1500 hours, Wednesday the 17th of November 1965. What a journey it had been, through thick and thin, and by perseverance and the kindness of the Danish people. Stan had endured and ultimately succeeded in delivering the little yacht to her destination.